Hello, welcome back. We are Lauren and Ebony. We are the Workforce Whisperers here with another episode from the depths of subreddit work with the questions, the advice that people are looking for from two MCC coaches. And we might bring a little Stark sass and some helpful advice in between. Today's topic is how do I stay positive? Mainly, how do I stay positive when I've been turned down for a promotion and it was a job I was recommended to apply for? Ebony, what advice you got?
One, you need a time to reflect to reset. First, I would reset. This is not about you. There are a lot of factors in play when people are filling open positions. Two, I want you to spend some time just taking care of yourself and then go into what could have happened, right? What's the forensics of the process that may have happened for you around the job? I would also begin to talk to the person who recommended you and say, hey, what made the other candidate a bit more attractive? Are there gaps in skills in my resume I need to upskill or reskill in order for me to be the preferred candidate for the next role? What you don't know is what the staffing deployment and development plan looks like. They may have decided that, hey, you may be better in a future role we have coming up in 2 months, and we want to leave you open and not have you switch jobs again in that short period of time. It's not always that you were rejected. Very few times is you were rejected. Most times is you were redirected. And so what does that redirection look like? And what questions do you need answered or that can be answered for you to let go mentally and have mental flexibility? And which ones should you just say, hey, the world is working for me and not against me? What's your thoughts?
The big thing that's coming up for me is when I look at this question about staying positive, is to be honest, like you're disappointed. And I think to not honor that feeling is kind of compartmentalizing it or really like putting a role on and not being yourself. So feel the feels, channel it, maybe have a conversation with a friend, probably not at work, outside of that environment. And then think about like, how do you want to show up tomorrow? How can you turn this around? Because no one owes you a promotion. And the fact that you applied for it sounds like this was an open role. So even though someone recommends you for it, like that's awesome. That means that someone is your sponsor or your ally or advocate. But until there's something in writing, until there is an absolute like signed on the dotted line contract, it's not guaranteed. And you're going to have more disappointments like this in the future. So the more that you can kind of flex this resilience of how do I handle things that don't go the way that I expect them to, is going to equip you to rebound faster later on in your career and show up as a professional and also strategize going forward.
I 100% agree with you. And the other thing I would say, if you're looking at the emotional scale, going from disappointment to overwhelm, then either frustration or impatience, pessimism, boredom, and then contentment. You need to move yourself up the emotional scale. You won't be able to go from disappointment to positive. And that's why I advocated for the reset period. That reset and then reflect period is that time for you to move yourself up the emotional scale so that you can truly be positive and not pretend. Because the pretending is harder than just sitting with the emotional experience. Trauma comes from having an incomplete emotional experience and then having to stay with it over and over again. So think about what those things are for you. And as I've said before, this wasn't a rejection. This is a redirection. Something better is waiting for you on the other side of this experience.
Also, think about documenting this because later on in your life, you never know where this story can show up as a helpful anecdote. Maybe you're writing a book, maybe you're putting a speech together. So think about how do you want to show up 10 years from now, thinking about this time and how you responded to it.
And you can always go down the YouTube rabbit hole. There is a speech from the first Army officer who became a pageant winner. I don't know if she was Miss USA or Miss America, but she got rejected 7 times before she was actually crowned.
Amazing. So you'll be a winner when you get rejected.
Yeah, you will be.
Eventually.
Keep going.
Keep going. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Workforce Whispers with Lauren and Ebony. And check us out on a future episode. And if you have any questions, slide into our DMs. We'd love to hear from you about questions about work. And y'all keep being amazing.